Meantime, NVIDIA shares plunging 17% in yesterday's regular trading sessions, the biggest single-day market cap loss for a U.S. company. Joining us right now to talk about it is Chris Casso. He's Wolfe Research senior analyst. Chris, I think there's a lot of big questions that people describe this as a Sputnik moment. So let's just start there. Is it a Sputnik moment, and were you buying or selling yesterday?
Well, whether it's a Sputnik moment or not depends on, how the accuracy of the claims. And, I know you discussed that on the program, and I think that's the first place to start. And what, shocked people so much, and again, this news just didn't break over the weekend, it's been out for a while, is that they were able to provide, so much more efficiency in training as compared to OpenAI and everybody else that's doing it, and how are they able to do it in such a short span. Again, DeepSeek couldn't have access to large clusters of NVIDIA's most advanced chips. So necessity is the mother of invention. But the question is, is everything in the white paper, 100% accurate? And, given the magnitude of the moves yesterday, that's a really important place to start.
Well, but Crystal, let's go there, because I'll give you my perspective. I'm not sure it has to be 100% accurate. Meaning, I think there could be. It may be that they trained off of 50,000 of NVIDIA's fastest chips, as Alex Wang said on our broadcast last week. It is possible that they are using and leveraging Llama and other open source services. It's possible, by the way, that they're scraping and leveraging things even like OpenAI and other sort of closed frontier. Maybe they're doing all of these things to get to this point. But I think the point is that they got to this point, and they got to it clearly with less energy than everybody else did. And ostensibly, for those who actually have now read through the code and understand it, they would tell you that you can start to build off of this in a much more efficient way than you could before.
Right. And that's an important point going forward. And really the question here is is the world going to need as much compute going forward as we thought a week ago? And at the very least, when you look at the announcements over the last week, SoftBank and such, 500 billion, the Meta comments, upwards of 60 billion or so. The big AI players in the U.S. are still planning on spending right now, and I don't get a sense that they're reassessing that just today. But that's the question going forward.
So you think that's interesting. So you think if there was a meeting yesterday inside of Microsoft, inside of a Google, inside you name the company, and they said our spending plans, again, what is that conversation? Is that conversation not that they're and by the way, it's not clear to me that they have to basically say we're not spending $80 billion tomorrow, right? That we've already signed that. I think the question is more. In their planning meeting in 2026 and 27, are they planning to spend another $80 billion in 29 and 30 and 31 the same way, right? That becomes the fundamental question. Right.
And at least what you could say thus far, and I wasn't party to any of those meetings they had, if they had meetings yesterday, it's a bit of a space race, right? So, what one of the things NVIDIA said for a while is that, nobody wants to be, the second model that comes out. That there's a big question about, time to market. The reason why OpenAI is in the position where it is because ChatGPT came on the scene before anybody else, and it was pretty good. And you go from there. We're now in reasoning models, right? So that's kind of the next frontier. And moving the ball forward on that is really important. I still get the sense, and I think that's probably over the next 1 or 2 years, that each one of these large companies is still going to want to be on the forefront. Mm-hmm. If you figure out a way to do it more cheaply, well, of course you're going to do that, and so that goes without saying. But I still don't think, given the stakes in AI, that anybody is going to want to slow down and say, you know what, I can save myself a ton of money and I can be number 3 in the market. That doesn't seem to be where people's
I
heads
hear you.
are.
I just don't know if it's an order of magnitude. We got to go, but I just don't know enough about whether it's orders of magnitude less, meaning it's not just I want to spend less money. It's that I don't even have to spend as much money and I can get the same output or even better, right? That's, I think, the fundamental question, and we still don't have answers on it. But Chris,
and I'll tell you that there's a place we'll find out the NVIDIA GTC event in March. That's the AI event. Everybody's there. There's a big keynote by Jensen. Absolutely, positively, we're going to hear more about it then.
Mark your calendar. What date is that? Do you know?
It's like third week of March. I forget the date exactly.
Chris.
Let's get right to the markets. A day after the NASDAQ did drop by 3%, fueled by China's AI startup DeepSeek. NVIDIA shares rebounding a bit this morning after wiping out almost $600 billion in market cap yesterday. Of course, that is the biggest one-day market cap loss in U.S. history, although the rotation, Jim, was to some areas of tech, too.
Yes, indeed. And remember, the second worst was also NVIDIA during the watch party period. The stock is up. What I would say is there'll be heat-seeking missiles coming after that stock up. And if you really want to buy it, wait till they send it down $2-3, because that's been the usual practice here. Look, it's no doubt about it that people just say they're the blast zone. I like Semblus. I go to Semblus a lot from JP Morgan. And he's saying, listen, before you just write this off, remember that there are real winners. There's winners and losers, and he's saying that Amazon's a winner. They benefit high quality. They can Amazon, Apple, Meta, and some lesser extent Google winners. But NVIDIA, we point out, is at David. One of the shoot first asked questions later. The PE based on forward earnings expectations declined toward the very low end of the range. And I was watching last night a great video after CES with a chart. It's on YouTube, huge. And I just thought, you know what? We're now thinking. We went from thinking it's great to thinking there's really no use to it. But I keep coming back to the next generation is about robots, and it's about self-driving. It's not about ask ChatGPT where it might hallucinate or not.
Right.
Come on, let's get serious here.
Right. Well, I don't think that anybody is still. I don't really think there's a great deal of questioning as to the long-term impact of AI, Jim.
Right.
Okay. What we had yesterday, of course, was a question as to whether or not there are going to be ways to do it more cheaply, that is going to require less compute and therefore less power, perhaps.
Right.
And even though it was a broad sell-off in some ways, it was very distinctive in terms of it was NVIDIA, it was Broadcom, it was anybody really in the data center and or providing power to the data center. But and the fact is, Microsoft did not sell off that much. Alphabet did not sell off that much. Amazon, I mean, and
they're potential winners.
Right now, Alphabet, I don't know. Maybe
well, it's
not
a
as much.
Tough one. Search could hurt
this
them.
Distillation that's happening. In other words, that how they DeepSeek distilled from OpenAI and what that means in terms of the commoditization overall of all of these models.
Right.
I do wonder, for example, if OpenAI was trading as a public company, which it may at some point. What would have happened to it yesterday?
I know. And how much did this outfit, did these things
dramatically
steal from OpenAI?
They may have.
I have Benioff on tonight to talk specifically about how that is the denouement.
But,
DeepSeek's breakout, calling into question the tens of billions of dollars big tech companies have coughed up for AI development. The move lower also raising eyebrows around the valuations of these tech leaders. Joining us now, Deepwater Asset Management, Gene Munster. Gene, I suppose the best way to ask you whether you think this is an opportunity or sort of sign of a greater risk here is to simply ask you, are you picking up more NVIDIA at this point?
Deepwater does own NVIDIA. I can't say how we're trading it in the near term, but I can say we do own NVIDIA. And Deirdre, I think at the fundamental question there is the near term and then there is the long term. And I just want to highlight one dynamic around the near term is that the innovation around DeepSeek is real. And even if you think that they're embellishing some of the cost piece around that innovation piece is real. But there's a much bigger question that needs to be asked is not about what the cost to train the previous models were, but to get to that incremental step forward closer to artificial general intelligence. Does DeepSeek have some sort of a formula to do that in a cost-effective way? And my sense is that they will not be able to do that. So I think that the spending piece is on track. The reason why I mentioned there's the near term around how these are trading versus kind of, let's say, the near term over the next few days, actually, is that all eyes are centered on tomorrow night with Microsoft, with Meta, Tesla's comments about the hyperscalers, and most investors believe, consensus is that they're going to have some sort of reassuring comments that the market's going to be just, that the AI trade, the hardware trade, the CapEx spending is intact. And when that becomes consensus, if that doesn't yield kind of a rebound in some of these stocks, I think you could see a little bit of a near-term sell-off. If you're curious, typically when you have these shocks in the system, looking back to the run from 95 to 2000, it's about 30 days it takes from that initial shock that we saw yesterday to when things actually bottom, which puts us right in sync with when NVIDIA is going to be reporting their quarter.
I mean, you own NVIDIA. Steph's got a move that I'm going to get to after this because it plays right into what we're talking about here. But how are you assessing the damage here? Morgan Stanley today cuts the price targets of a number of semi stocks, including NVIDIA and Broadcom and Marvell and Micron. NVIDIA goes to 152 from 166, whereas Baird today says they'd be buyers of NVIDIA on this dip.
So 152, just to use that number on NVIDIA, would still be a nice 20% rise from here, which would indicate that you should not sell all your NVIDIA. What you should do, though, is evaluate risk. And I watched the show yesterday. Obviously, I'm here today. We are all talking about risk management. And for the last 2 days, I've been talking to a lot of portfolio managers within Cerity Partners, outside of Cerity Partners. There are very few. In fact, I don't think there's anybody who said that now is the time to back up the truck on AI. By the same token, nobody is saying sell all these names outright. That's not the conversation. The idea that these are bust in some sort of post-1999 way is not what people are talking about. Now, maybe that's wrong, but we'll find out. What people are talking about, and by people, I'm referring to professional portfolio managers, is this. Did we go into the end of last week with simply too much risk? Were we too blasé? Consider Oracle for a second, one of the stocks that's in the headlines the last 2 days. It shot up like a moon rocket last week on Project Stargate, and now it's given that all back. You have to be comfortable with the level of risk that you have. Now, what I'm saying to you, just to be explicit, is most people that I'm talking to are talking about trimming risk. What I'm doing in light of that is I'm waiting because we are going to get more information as the week goes on. I don't want to get ahead of where we are in today's rundown, but I will say we've got earnings coming up from two of the major hyperscalers, Microsoft, Meta. Let's see what they have to say. There are going to be questions about DeepSeek on those conference calls. I will wait for that information, but I think this is a time for everybody to say, not should we sell these all outright, but did we have too much risk?
NVIDIA is at the highs of the day. You know, as we're sitting here talking, and Josh makes the case that, you know, some of this might be overdone to at least some degree. It's trying to get 5% back of yesterday's huge sell-off.
I got to ask you about NVIDIA. Let's wrap it up with that.
Yeah, we gotta. You know, I wish I came on the show at 9 o'clock. The setup for traders, especially the traders watching this, you know, you watch that 200-day moving average. It's the first time it broke below it since December of 2023, maybe October 2023. It's been a while. We finally eclipsed it. Every buy stop in the world was set to 122. As soon as it hit 122, it was off to the races. So your risk reward, it was set up for a nice rebound trade. And long term, I still think it's great. This story out of China with DeepSeek, we shot first. We're asking questions now, and the answers we're getting. Kyle Bass was on your show. He doesn't trust it, and I have more questions than answers. So I think this was a buying opportunity, just like August 5th with the Japan yen carry trade. Remember that? We sold off a ridiculous amount. We got an opportunity to buy, and if it does fail the 200-day, you get out.
We're going to wrap it there. Jay Woods, thank you.
You have as much confidence today in NVIDIA as you did last week in their ability to beat and then continue to, if not raise their guidance to the degree they had in the past, because most think that that's not possible anyway, but enough to justify the excitement and the move in those shares?
Well, yes, I do. I mean, we've been doing a lot of research on this, and one of the things to understand is that, like, training consumes a lot of computing power, but inference, especially at the edge, i.e., when you use you do something on your iPhone that requires any kind of agent AI, any kind of AI function, that inferencing function could be multiples of compute power needed. And you know, the interesting result, DeepSeek is run on NVIDIA chips. It's just run on last generation NVIDIA chips versus say, upcoming generations or highest end. Blackwell is coming from NVIDIA. We think there'll be plenty of people pursuing both ends of the AI spectrum, right? There'll be some still pursuing the absolute high-end cutting edge. Think about internet search. There was Yahoo. Then there was Google. But in between, there were Ask Jeeves, Alta Vista, Bing has been around. That battle to be the ultimate dominant AI model is going to continue for a while still. And at the same time, with the lower cost, a lot of more pragmatic, practical applications can be possible, particularly through software and hardware.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. Today, we saw some nice relief in NVIDIA stock after yesterday's sell-off. NVIDIA finished today up about 8.8%. I'll reiterate much of what I said in yesterday's videos about NVIDIA and DeepSeek because I still have serious concerns about this. I'm not fully convinced that everything we've been told about DeepSeek is true. I find it very hard to believe that a team produced an LLM that's comparable to the top LLMs in the US with only a $6 million budget in old NVIDIA hardware. I seriously think the budget was much, much larger than $6 million, and I also think DeepSeek is likely using tens of thousands of NVIDIA H100s. On that note, listen in really quick to this clip of Scale AI CEO from this past Friday.
The Chinese labs, they have more H100s than people think.
And these are the highest powered NVIDIA chips that they were not supposed to have.
Yes. My understanding is that DeepSeek has about 50,000 H100s, which they can't talk about, obviously, because it is against the export controls that the United States has put in place. And I think it is true that, I think they have more chips than other people expect, but also on a go-forward basis, they are going to be limited by the chip controls and the export controls that we have in place.
This is the main question. Is DeepSeek using tens of thousands of NVIDIA H100s? If the answer to that question is yes, then yesterday's sell-off in NVIDIA was just a bunch of hoopla about nothing. As I said yesterday, we have to be very careful about believing every claim that we hear, because there is currently an AI race between the US and China. Similar to what happened in the space race, both countries are vying for dominance, and they want to be viewed as the leader in AI innovation. With this in mind, we have to be very careful about believing every single claim that we hear. I think it is likely that DeepSeek had a much larger budget than $6 million, and I think they are likely using a large number of NVIDIA H100s. Of course, I could be wrong, but I think this is the likely scenario. The problem is that even if DeepSeek has tens of thousands of high-end NVIDIA GPUs, they're not going to comment on that publicly because they're technically not supposed to have those chips under the US export restrictions. So what's next? Where do we go from here? Tomorrow, Wednesday, January 29th, after market close, is when multiple of NVIDIA's largest customers report earnings. Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla are all scheduled to report earnings and share their CapEx guidance. If the hyperscalers' CapEx guidance continues to come in strong, then that could help calm some of market participants' worries. I'm sure there will be many questions about DeepSeek on both Meta and Microsoft's earnings calls tomorrow. And the way in which these companies answer those questions will have a big impact on markets, and especially on NVIDIA stock in the short term. If Microsoft and Meta both reaffirm their commitment to spending massive amounts of money on building AI infrastructure, then I think NVIDIA is likely to trade higher on that news. All right, so that is the current situation from my perspective. I think DeepSeek had a much larger budget than $6 million, and I think they likely have many NVIDIA H100s. Now market participants will shift their focus to mega-cap tech earnings Wednesday after market close. And I think the comments made on those earnings calls about DeepSeek will have an important impact on markets, and especially NVIDIA stock in the short term. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.